episode of the 411, I'll be catching up with a business leader who, to put it bluntly, has created a shit-hot place to work. We're going to be digging deep to understand what that means and how they've managed to achieve that. So if you're a business owner either going through growing pains at the moment or wanting to stand out in a crowded marketplace, then this podcast is for you. So welcome to today's episode of the 411. This morning I'm joined by Hannah Barlow, the Managing Director of Dunsters Farm. Thanks for your time. So just by way of a little bit of an intro, Dunsters Farm are a chilled and frozen food provider to hospitality, schools and restaurants. In the last 8 years since Hannah and her brother took the business over, they've gone from 35 to 100 staff and from an 8 mil turnover to 20 mil turnover. I think I've got that right, Hannah?
Yeah, that's right.
Brilliant. So an amazing growth story, and what we want to do now is kind of really understand how you've grown the business, what your culture means to you. So if you could start off by telling us a little bit about the origin of Dunsters Farms, and I guess how you and your brother kind of took over the business, because it wasn't part of the original plan, was it?
Most definitely not.
Yeah.
So Dunsters Farm as a business started around about 60 years ago, and it was actually our grandfather's milk round, based in Bury, which we're still in Bury now. We're very proud of that. But yeah, it was a milk round, and he grew it quite organically. His customers started asking for other products, so he started selling other products. That then developed into market stalls at Manchester Market, Birmingham Market, places like that. And then eventually it became more advanced sales. And my granddad was really passionate about the business, but he also was really passionate about his charity work in the local area. He actually eventually got an MBE for his services to charity, which is again something that we're super proud of, and we try and carry on that legacy today. But he kind of took a back step from the business probably quite early, really, for someone who'd founded their own business. And that really came about because my dad is, so he married into the business, so he's the boss's daughter, which
is a bit of a love story here, I think.
A little bit, yeah. So my grandfather on my dad's side had a similar kind of business over in Yorkshire. My mum's dad had his milk round and market stalls over in Lancashire, and my dad came over as a rep, basically, met my mum, and that's how they got together, really. So I think my granddad kind of thought, oh, this is good, this is someone who can look after the business for me. So my dad at like 23 was basically the MD.
Wow.
My granddad was still involved, very much interested in the business, but he kind of used his time in a different way, I suppose. So that really meant that my mum and dad, from a very young age, were running the business.
Wow, okay. So how did you and your brother get involved? Because both your careers are totally different.
Yes.
The food industry.
Absolutely. So my brother by trade is a lawyer, and my background is in PR and comms and marketing.
Okay.
Things that we both were really passionate about.
Yeah.
I think really my mum and dad had obviously had the business for a number of years. My uncle was involved in the business, and he decided that he wanted to get out of the business and do other things. So an opportunity arose where my dad thought, I've not got a succession plan. There's no one else to take this business on that's in the family. We didn't want to sell it, or he didn't want to sell it. So I think they'd had a few conversations, but they'd never ever talked really about the business to me or my brother. Their take on it, and I think because of the way they were kind of not forced, but I think they kind of went into their family businesses naturally, and then my dad ended up running his wife's family business. I think from a young age they didn't have any other options, whereas for their children they kind of wanted us to do what we wanted to do something we loved, and they gave us every opportunity to do that, so we're really, really fortunate. But yeah, this time came around, and Dad rang me one night and he said, do you want to come round? So I turned up, and he said, look, would you want into the business? I was like, what? Like, this is unheard of. What's he going on about?
Yeah.
So I just thought, I'll kind of call his bluff a little bit, and I just said, well, it's a big job, Dad. Like, I don't know. Like, I'd be really keen. I love the idea of having my own business. But I just went, I'll do it if Tom does it. Tom's my brother.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, that's great, because I spoke to him, and he said he'd do it if you do it. And I was like, no way. He's not going to leave his job. He lived in London at the time with his partner. And he said the same, and we were both kind of called each other out and failed miserably. Right. So we both started on the same day.
Wow.
8 years ago this month. And I suppose the rest is history, but it was something we'd never considered. We're both I suppose I don't really like the word entrepreneurial, but I think we both are quite entrepreneurial, and I think that's probably just how our parents have brought us up. To us, having your own business isn't something scary. It's kind of what our family did. Even though we weren't heavily involved as children, we knew about it.
It was like all around you.
We were immersed in it. So as we grew up, when we spoke about what we wanted to do and have our own careers, we kind of didn't really want to work for somebody else, which I don't know whether everyone has that. I don't know that was just us. But we did. And we did what we could in our careers, and, we were doing well. And, to turn up in the family business where you're kind of already doing well in a career and you have to start again, and also you can't get the same salary you were on. They're quite scary things. I bought a house at the time, and I know my husband was thinking, she's mental. What have we done? And Tom's partner, who is now his wife, I'm sure clearly thought the same thing as well. It was quite a big risk in a lot of ways. But I suppose we did, because of the way our parents brought us up, we did have careers to fall back on if it had all gone wrong. Which is a little bit comforting, but I suppose once you're in, you're in. There was no going back.
I know that feeling only too well. So I guess all of a sudden you handed a business. Now, not quite literally. I know you kind of, mum and dad were still involved, but I guess when we spoke a few weeks ago, there's that pressure, isn't there, of being a successor of a family business, actually having never properly worked in it before. So what was it like to start with? And how did the team respond as well?
I think you really hit the nail on the head, Claire, when you said you've been handed a business. That is what people's impression is. It's kind of like, oh, here's mummy and daddy's children. They're going to run the business for a little bit now and see what they can do. And I suppose when I speak to my parents about it now, they face the exact same issues that we faced when they took over the business. And you kind of forget that. They were younger than we were. But I suppose the business was smaller. And I suppose we are quite different characters as well. I think a lot of people, there was two camps. There was people that saw us as some sort of saviour, that we had the answers to everything and we were going to solve all their problems. And then there was this other camp that just wanted us to fail. And they would be really gleeful if something went wrong. We really had to battle that. And I think it's one of those learning curves that I'm so glad we've been through, but at the time it was so hard. I think people were the biggest challenge. Some of these people that worked in the business remember us being born. That is odd. That you then have to run a business and these people are working for you. And we're very, very conscious, myself and my brother, when we're talking about the team, that we don't use the word staff, employees. We don't like that. We are very much a team culture, but we've had to work hard to get that. It wasn't natural. It wasn't how the business had really been run. It was very much really shallow structure, in that there was my parents and my uncle, and then the team below them. There wasn't management structure. There wasn't departmental structure. And I think some of that, sometimes that's good, but as you grow, you have to put in some structure. I think that's what we've found. What we've tried to do is bring some of the really good stuff from the corporate world and leave the rubbish stuff behind. It's hard to do, and hard to decide which stuff to bring with you. But I think people would most definitely our biggest challenge. If we could have changed the people first, maybe that would have been better. Maybe it would have been quicker. But we didn't really have the option. We had to keep the business going. So instead we looked at kind of systems and other things that we could change to really turbo the growth. We're both super ambitious, which is a blessing and a curse, because we wanted to change things overnight. And there was a few times when even Dad had to say, look, this can't happen so quick, you're not going to do it. Calm down. But we were no, we can do it. And there was stories where we wanted to hit 1 million turnover for the first time in the month, and me and Tom and one of our colleagues, Tom, who we've known kind of pretty much all our lives, and he became a really intrinsic part of our management team. We're on the back of the truck at 11 o'clock at night, putting goat slogs on, because we wanted to hit
just to
hit
that 1 million. But that's that passion and ambition that is, as daft as a story as that is, that kind of shows what you're all about, doesn't it?
I mean, at the start we were literally doing everything, and I think looking back, maybe we did that for too long. We wanted to know everything about the business because although it was our family business, I think we said earlier, Claire, that we'd done holiday jobs, you know, as soon as we could drive, we were delivering stuff for our parents. We'd swept the floors, we'd done the really bad jobs, you know, everything no one wants to do, the photocopying, joyous jobs. But we didn't know the business. I mean, looking back, I should have asked to see the accounts. I mean, why didn't I? What an idiot. I didn't ask for anything.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, we'll do it. How exciting, what a challenge.
But I guess hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And you said then about how you kind of did a lot of things. You didn't necessarily know the right things.
No.
But you had to maybe go off gut. Did you at that point, and do you now, but certainly at that point, did you have kind of any like leadership support external to the business, anyone that you could kind of turn to and go, because you know, this phrase gets said a lot, but I really am passionate about it, whether it be work or personal. Like each day we're all kind of winging it a bit, aren't we? Because we've never been here before, and we're dealing with situations and we're thinking, how's the best way? And with experience comes, I guess, examples in the past as to how things work and don't work, but when you first took over, any outside support?
Not really. The business had been very much kept within itself.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe a generational thing.
Yeah.
So my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, they wouldn't have really looked outside support. I think it was more seen as a sign of weakness to look outside the business. It was kind of, it's our business, it's our family, keep out.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in like an aggressive way, just in a protective way. And I think the business had to be like that. But I think we came at it from a different angle. So we were used to networking and talking to people and getting, you know, advice from consultants and things like that. And I'm not saying all that is always the greatest thing to do, and you have to be able to trust the people you work with. But we did start to open the business out a little bit. And for my dad, I think that was probably one of the scariest things. He was really supportive, you know, whatever we asked to do, even if it was, you know, a lot of money, he was really on board. He was like, yeah, let's have a go, let's do it. And he's been really, I think he's very proud of the journey we've been on. He's still, you know, quite involved now as our chairman. But I think one of the things he was most worried about was kind of opening the business up to other people, because he'd never done that before. So we started getting involved with family business groups and, you know, even stuff like, I think my dad's only relationship outside the business was with the bank and the accountant. Yeah. And the business had been through really tough times, so that was really important. And we're still with our bank now. They've kind of helped us a lot over the years, and there is a real sense of relationship and belonging and loyalty and all that there. But that was the most he'd ever opened up to. Yeah. So we then started going to events, and he was like, where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? And it was a bit scary, I think, for him, but we were used to that. And do you know what, like, that was, you know, 7, 8 years ago when we started to do that. When COVID hit, if we hadn't had those relationships, it would have been possibly game over.
Even tougher than it was.
Yeah, we pulled in a lot of favours, but it was from people that we'd spoken to in the past, the relationships we'd built outside of the business. And I think that's where we got our support from, to know we weren't on our own. And I think the other thing was, if I'd have been doing it on my own, I would have needed more external help. Yeah. Like now we have a non-exec director, we're a bit further down that road, but we'd have needed it earlier, because I mean, you just couldn't have done it on your own. No. Thankfully, we had each other to have as a sounding board and a little bit of like a sense check when maybe we'd gone a bit too far or weren't really on the right track and our head wasn't in the right place. So I think maybe that's why we didn't need kind of as much external help early on, is that we did at least have each other.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. When I've met other business owners who are the kind of majority shareholder or only shareholder, they often have a support team around them much earlier on, but I get that, as you know, Full's run by myself and my brother. Yeah. To triple your business headcount wise and to grow your turnover by 250%, that doesn't happen overnight, does it? In 8 years, that's amazing. Plus you've had, as you mentioned, the C word earlier, you've had lots of challenges to overcome. So I guess whenever we do these podcasts, for people that are listening that are kind of thinking, right, I need to get my business from A to B and I need to scale, how am I going to do that? What are the key things that you and Tom did to get you from where you were on day one to now, I guess?
An awful lot of hard work. I think people that say, like, you don't need to put the hours in, I mean, I'd love to be those people. Yeah. You know, we really put the hours in to the point where it was probably detrimental.
Right.
You know, in terms of our health, our mental health, our relationships, everything, we probably went to the wire.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's a good thing.
No.
But I think we've learned from that. So I think now we do things differently, and we look after ourselves differently and our families differently. But yeah, we put in a lot of hours. You know, we were here when the drivers were coming in, and we were here when the picking team were going home. And I think some people didn't quite realise that.
Yeah.
I think surround yourself with good people. We very early on brought in another Tom to our business, who he had no experience in food service, so he's a bit like us. We knew him. Actually, his older brother is a friend of Tom's from school. So we kind of knew a bit about him. He was an economics graduate. He was really bright, really ambitious, and he was looking for graduate work, which we didn't have. But somehow he ended up being part of our team, and he's still here now. He's one of our directors. And I think just having like-minded people that know what you're about and are there to kind of fight your corner and I suppose just come along on that journey with you is really important. And I think we moved on to kind of our people as soon as we could, and we started to look outside the business about who do we need, what skills do we need. So we knew we wanted certain people, and I think as soon as we got the growth going ourselves, which was the real hard work bit, we then could afford to bring certain people into the business. So we brought people from other food services in. So we had like a sales director who, spent 30 years selling food. He knew the industry, he knew the customer base, he knew what was needed to get us to that next stage. We brought in people in our transport team and our operations team that have worked elsewhere and been trained really well by some large corporate organisations, so they could bring those skills to our team as well. Because in the past, I think everyone had worked really well as a team, and we've promoted from within, which is brilliant, and we love to do that. But I think there is sometimes some skills and knowledge and experience that you just can't get that way. So I think you've got to be open to, who's really good and who can bring something extra to the table. Someone once said to me, and it's a real cliche thing about hire people that are better than you. Yeah, absolutely hire people that are better than you, because they make your business really good. They make you look brilliant. So yeah, I think trying to find where the skills gaps are, and to make those key hires. And if it's not working, let's move on quick. Yeah. Fail fast. It's so important. Try it, and then if it's not working right, okay, let's go again. Let's go a different route. Never give up. But it's hard. I don't think there's, if there was a recipe to it.
There's not magic.
Everyone would do it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I think, surround yourself by the right people that you can trust and that are with you on this journey. We, at Dunsters, we have a little analogy that we use, which is really cheesy, about a train. And I'm talking about like high-speed trains, where Japan style.
Yeah, you use that versus get on the bus, off the bus.
Yeah, I mean, we're really proud that we're from Bury, we've got the East Lancs Railway. But we're not talking steam train, we're talking like, let's go super fast in the right direction, and let's be nimble and quick, and we can beat our competitors that way. So we often say, like, are you on the train or not? And not in an aggressive way or anything like that, just in a, look, we are going in this direction and we are going super fast. It's not for everyone, and we get that. If people don't want to work with us, that's really fine. We'll still be dead friendly with them and help them as much as we can. But it's not for everyone. And we're not for everyone. And that's okay. But the people that are on the train, we're going to have a great time on the way. It's like the party train.
I think that's important, isn't it, as well? It's not just about that end destination, which we can come on to. It's about making sure that people are enjoying what they're doing, and you all, I guess, going towards that common goal. What about the system process side? Just across the business, not necessarily specific to the food industry. We also appointed a non-exec quite recently, and one of the things that we're acknowledging is that our infrastructure and processes and systems just need to be slightly more mature to allow us to go, when I say go again, kind of scale further. What did you do on that front?
So I remember right in the early days, I set up a sales meeting, which was unheard of. Didn't have meetings. I brought this really corporate thing, a meeting, and we had this monthly sales meeting, and the discussions around new customers was getting really frustrating. It was quite a heated discussion. And I just said, whoa, why are we annoyed about getting a new customer? This is surely a good thing. And it came down, once we kind of dissected the problem, that it was the system. The system was creaking, and actually to get a new customer, it's really painful.
Right. Okay.
Because even setting them up, getting them routed on a route, just everything about onboarding a new customer was actually a lot of work. And I said, well, that's got to change, that's mental. Like, we need to grow. We can't say no to customers or make it hard for them. So I think that's when we suddenly thought, oh, we can't have this system. And the system worked, but it wasn't specific to our industry. So we went and we basically did a road trip. So myself and Tom, and the other Tom, went off and we begged, stealed and borrowed from any provider we could find to say, show us your system and show it in action. And wholesalers let us in.
Right.
I think we were very under the radar at that time, so we did it at the right time. Now they won't be letting us in, but they let us in their warehouses, and then we saw their IT teams, and we're like, oh, this would work. And then that was really good, but we had to do the work again, so we trawled the country looking in warehouses, which was fascinating for me, but not for everyone. And then we kind of came to the final two, and it ended up, it was on relationships, which I think to me, that's business is all relationships. There was one provider who wouldn't budge on price, don't like that, wouldn't negotiate, wasn't open to any discussion. You could just tell that it would be hard work, and this wasn't just, even a 5-year project. This was, we want a provider that would could take us, 10 years, maybe further, and really come with us on this journey. The other provider was much more approachable, flexible. They kind of really pulled out all the stops for us in terms of getting us into sites, and I'm really glad we went with them because it has been a good journey so far with them, and it's been the right one for us.
So that was quite a big part then to allow you to kind of scale. I know one of the things that you did, I think, earlier this year was acquire a business, which was your first acquisition. How did that come about, and what have you learned from that process?
So, just before COVID, our next stage was opening up to frozen food, which is kind of the area that we've never been able to do before. I mean, it seems quite simple, but to sell frozen food, you need a freezer. We don't have one. So we were looking at having one built. There's a lot that goes into actually having a freezer built. Things like, you won't believe, but you need underfloor heating for a freezer. Things I never knew about, because I never sold frozen food. So we started getting quotes in, and then COVID hit, and we couldn't do it. And it was quite expensive. And then I think just as we're in kind of the COVID world, we knew a food service that was based about an hour and a half away from here through a buying group that we were part of. And my brother had been having conversations with their director, and their owner was looking to sell. And they approached us. So it never really went to market as such. It was kind of that relationship again. We knew them, they knew us, they liked us, they felt they had a similar ethos and values to us. It was similar how they ran. So those conversations started. So we were like, oh, they sell frozen. So it kind of opened our eyes to another solution. So I think that's something we've always kind of been quite proud of, is that if we think there's a way to do something, actually that might not be the final solution. So don't be scared to look outside the box, don't be scared to change your plan slightly and divert if it's a bit of a quicker way to do something. So this meant that we could buy a business and have frozen straight away. Whereas if we want to build a freezer, it could take months and months and months. So it was a quicker way, and it just seemed the right fit. But it wasn't without challenges. I think for me, my background isn't in law or anything to do with acquisitions or mergers or anything like that, whereas my brother's background, thankfully, when he was a lawyer, that's what he did. Really big deals, not this kind of thing. But because my brother is used to that kind of world and the terminology and how it works and the way a deal is processed, he just went into work mode. And he just could take the emotion out completely, and he kept saying, Hannah, don't let the emotion take over, and I found it really hard. So that again is why it's been so good that we can work together and have different skills, because he just had to rein me back in. And I'm glad we've done it now. It's still challenging, but it's there. With the integration is ongoing. Every acquisition has its challenges. It's an hour and a half away. But it's working. And we're selling frozen food.
Okay, great. And is the plan for future acquisitions, or
potentially? Never say never.
Exciting. Okay. So I guess subject I want to talk about now, we talk about it a lot on the podcast, is all around culture. And you alluded to it a little bit early when you were kind of talking about the team and what's important to you. So again, culture will have changed inevitably from kind of when your mum and dad had it to you and Tom, and it's ultimately, especially post-COVID, that is what keeps people out of business, isn't it? That sense of belonging, that understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So what have you done as a business, I guess, to put culture almost at the forefront of what you do?
I think for us, culture is so important, and I think it's part of being a family business as well. We talk to a lot of other family businesses, and I think culture is just so key, as it is for every business. But I think when it is a family business, it's more precious to you because it feels like your family values are being instilled on other people, which is lovely. As long as you've got good values, otherwise it's a disaster. So we are really proud of how the business has developed and how it's grown and its journey. But I think as we've grown, and our headcount, like you said earlier, you know, you're going from 35 to 100 people, how would you bring everybody in and kind of on that journey without losing your culture? And it is hard. I'm not going to lie. It's much easier when I could meet every single person who came in for induction, and you know, I could have a really good chat with them and tell them all about the business, and my dad could talk about the history, and they'd feel really part of something. However, now I find that can easily get lost.
When did that stop, that bit of you really getting involved right at the start, seeing everybody? At what point?
I mean, I make it my business to try and meet everybody at some point, but I used to physically do the inductions.
Right. Okay.
So I think once we got to kind of 50 people, it just wasn't possible. And my time was used elsewhere in the business as well, and doing a lot more things outside the business. So I think my big thing is kind of how you make people understand your values. So we've done a lot of discussions with our management team about what are our values. Are they actually what me and Tom think they are, or are they something different? And we've opened that up to the wider team to say, what does Dunsters mean to you? We often say, like, what's a Dunsters person? And people then can have their say, and that's kind of how we've developed them. Next year is our 60th year in business, and we're really planning kind of a big shout about what our value is, what the culture of the business is, and where it's going. We have something that we call a Thinking Forward group, which is a representative from every area of the business, and we meet quarterly and we throw ideas about how we can make the business better, whether that's better for the community that we're in, you know, our team and the wider community here, the environment, you know, things about sustainability, or just better for our customers. So how do we just make sure we are ahead of our competitors? And the last meeting we had, I kind of set the meeting off, and then I didn't have to say anything else. People were just throwing loads of ideas, and it's really lovely to see when everybody gets on board and is so passionate about trying to think of good stuff for the business. But I think me and Tom are really conscious that in order to do all that good culture stuff, we have to be a commercially viable business. And we never forget that. You can't say it's not about the money, because it is. Because if you want to do lovely stuff for your team and want to do exciting things for your customers and for the community that you're in, you've got to make some money.
And do you know what? You said this a few weeks ago when we chatted, and for me that was just perfect in terms of where we're as business and how we view things. I'm so big on the whole culture side. But we can't do that if we're not, like you said, making money and doing well. And it's trying to provide that balance, that it's not all about financials and targets and KPIs. But equally, there has to be an element of that to then create this amazing culture. So I think that's really important.
We're really open with our team about, you know, results of the business and where we're at, and you know, we're in an industry where margins are very small. So every penny counts. And so it's not just thinking about these big grand gestures or big things we can do. It's also looking at where we can save money. So every single person and every manager in particular is tasked at looking where can they save some money. It's not all about spending money. So it's trying to create this culture where everyone feels that they belong. I think that's really important. I think where people feel that they can have a say, where people feel that they have a bit of autonomy in their role, because I think people want that, but where they feel safe, that they know the business is well run, that they have the freedom to then try things and not get told off because it's gone wrong, where, you know, that fail fast thing, let's have a go, okay, it's not worked, let's try again. There's no point just getting annoyed about it. Let's move on. You know, the business has been going for nearly 60 years. That's great. You know, we want it to carry on for another 60 years. So, you know, it doesn't matter if we try something for a few months and it's not quite right. We can still go again. But I think just making people feel like they belong somewhere is so important. I always say, I want someone to go to the pub on a Friday night with the mates And when they say, where do you work? They go, oh, I work at Dunsters. Oh, it's great. They're really good people. It's brilliant. Yeah. I don't want them to say they love every aspect of the job, because I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Everyone has parts of the job they hate, that are monotonous or boring, whatever. And we're next day food delivery. It's not that exciting. It's really not. But I do want them to feel like we're a good company.
Yeah.
And really, that's how we get to the stage where we're trying to put our people first all the time, and trying to just be the best we can be, because I think that's what we have the opportunity to do. It's our business.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah, no, I get it, and I love that pub comment when you said it, because that just makes it kind of all worthwhile. If you've got other people just turning around saying they're just a great place to work, it's a really like sense of satisfaction, isn't it, as a business owner? But also, it's also great PR going out about your business.
Of course, and don't get me wrong, it's also really good for business.
Yeah.
If we are the most sustainable we can be, if we're the most environmentally friendly we can be, if we're giving back to our community, we're going to win business off the back of that.
Of course you are.
I'm not just saying this because it's really nice to be that way.
Yeah.
Of course it's nice, but it also makes business sense.
Yeah, of course it does. People, businesses, suppliers, customers want to work with companies that are aligned. And as we've grown, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is, rather than almost our client base being any business in the Northwest, we want to work with businesses that really prioritise their people and culture. And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
It just makes business sense, doesn't it? So I totally get that. So, last 8 years, absolute whirlwind, amazing things, but also some challenges as well. For someone maybe looking at having taken over a family business that's listening, or just the next stage of growth, as I said earlier, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Is there anything that you would have done differently, would you say? Or any advice you can give?
I think stay focused on what you want to achieve, but don't be totally thrown off course if it doesn't quite go that way.
Yeah.
I think surround yourself by people you can trust and that are really passionate about the business as well. And I think, don't be afraid to have a go. I think before I came into the business, I was probably quite risk averse.
Yeah.
In my life in general.
Yeah.
And I think I've kind of learned that sometimes you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
And it can be quite scary, but have a go. Like, do your research, get your figures sorted, get your plan in place. But then at some point, you could think about it forever.
Yeah.
If it's not quite perfect, it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah, do you know what? A few people have said that to me recently, actually, in business, that so many people, especially, high achievers, perfectionists, they wait to that perfect point to launch something. And you might have actually missed the boat.
Yeah.
But like you said, if it's in your concept or product, if it doesn't work, then move on, do something different almost.
Absolutely.
So finally, a bit of a different question to end with, because we've talked a lot about work. I don't get the opportunity to meet a lot of female managing directors, which is not something that I'm particularly happy about, and I hope over time will change. But when we caught up, I don't think I'd realised your daughter is the same age as mine, 3. So you've got a scaling business, you're juggling a 3-year-old, both of which I know are bloody difficult. So how do you kind of balance both practically and also mindset-wise as well? Because it's really challenging, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when I had my daughter, I was probably really naive, and I thought, of course, I can do it. What could be so hard?
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't get it right all the time at all. I have a really good support network around me.
Okay.
I get a lot of help. I think people at work are very understanding as well about my circumstance and what I'm trying to juggle and what I'm trying to achieve, and people get it. I'm also very aware of people in our team that have similar circumstances, so I think we're quite flexible with our team, so it's kind of, that's that culture thing again.
It makes you more empathetic, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's how we operate. Before I had my daughter, I probably wasn't that empathetic. I think I was, but I wasn't. I get how hard it is. It's a real juggle, and I've got a supportive husband, and like I said, I've got this network around me that help me. I've got nursery, which is great. And I know not everyone can have that. But I think at the same time, you've got to slightly change your mindset as well, in that you've got to really divide your day into chunks of time and really prioritise things and make your time count. Yeah. So that's what I try and do now. Whereas before, I did kind of work kind of endlessly,
Yeah.
which again isn't good for anyone, whether you've got children or not.
Yeah.
But now I'm quite strict with my time. So if I'm with my daughter, I'm with my daughter. I got to the stage where she used to like close my laptop down, and she was only maybe 1. And I think, oh my word, I am such a bad mum. And that was a bit of a reality check. Even now she says like, Mummy, you on a call? She knows that I go to work.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, you know, my mum went to work, and we have loads of stories that we laugh about from when I was younger where, you know, I used to get picked up by a van driver or something from school because my mum was busy. I mean, you couldn't do that these days. But like, we always laugh about it now, but that didn't harm me.
No.
I knew that my mum and dad were busy. They still loved me. We did loads of great things as a family. And I think that's what I try and have with my daughter now, is that, you know, at weekends especially, we don't really work weekends. And I think I try and make sure that I have the time with her and with my husband as well. I think it's really important. And evenings as well, I try and always put her to bed if I'm here. I try not to be going away all the time, you know, as much as I can. So I do think you change your priorities slightly, but it doesn't mean you don't focus on your business. You just do it in a bit of a different way, and you just have to be a bit more savvy.
Would you say it's made you more ambitious after your daughter or not? Because I definitely feel that way with Ruby, but that could just be the way that I'm wired.
I think you've got another reason for doing what you do. And I know my brother's in the same situation. He's just had his 2nd child, and I think, again, you know, you want to provide for them, of course you do. We say it all the time, but we don't want the business to fail on our watch. That's a challenge for a generational business. So I think we're ambitious anyway. That's how we are. And then I think probably there's another layer of it then when you've got children to take into account. I mean, they're very young. My daughter's 3. You know, my nephew and niece are 2 and a few weeks old. They're not going to be taking over the business anytime soon. They might never want to, and we've never forced them to. We don't know what that journey looks like yet. That's ahead of us. But I think it does probably give you that added incentive to really give it a go.
And that was going to be my last question actually. Is there a plan to kind of ultimately exit, or is that not on your radar at the moment?
I think not in terms of selling the business. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to grow it. We've got really ambitious growth plans, as you're aware. And we're really enjoying that journey. And I think what might change is the management of the company. Potentially, you know, myself and Tom love getting involved in other stuff outside the business, whether that's, you know, advisory roles or consultancy roles and things like that, and helping other businesses, especially family businesses. You know, we're really passionate about that because we've appreciated the support we've had, and it's good to give back. And you know, even in terms of the community stuff that we do, you know, we want to be able to help this community prosper for a long time to come. And if we can do that through our experiences and through the business, then that's great. So potentially, you know, we might not be involved in the day-to-day forever. I think we'll always be involved a bit because I can't let go. I can't just not get involved. But maybe our roles will change.
You see a time when things might change slightly.
And that's good for the business. You know, that means there's better people now.
Of course. No, totally. I totally agree with that point around building your business around people that are better at you than you in certain areas. So totally get that. Fab, okay, exciting. And it's your 60th birthday next year, which I'm hoping I might get an invite to.
Big party.
Amazing. Look, thank you so much for your time. It's really good to meet somebody who's got an amazing growth story. We actually went to school together, didn't we? The year below me. Like I say, female, running a business, juggling a family, like there's loads of kind of similarities. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.